Well, Assembly Bill 5, the state law authored by Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez, continues to affect a variety of freelancers and independent contractors across California. Here now to tell us about how the new law is impacting the music industry is singer, songwriter, and composer Adrianne Duncan and independent musician and author Herstand. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us.
Now, I understand you saw our interview with Gonzalez on Friday, correct?
Yes.
In the interview, she kept saying over and over how this law, AB 5, is only affecting a few hundred, a couple hundred people. Weigh in on the numbers of people that you know are being affected by AB 5.
Well, we're getting anecdotes right and left. We know for a fact about a production of an opera in Northern California written by a female composer that was just canceled due to AB 5. So that's a small arts organization that got impacted adversely. And we also have a friend.
Just last week, this last week there were 50 music professionals that the contracts were signed, and they lost this work because the composer couldn't handle the added costs of AB 5 was going to bring them. So he took this work from California and he's like, you know what, I'm going to Florida with this. And so all these 50 music professionals were relying on this work, and they lost it at the last minute because of this.
And that's just two people that know about these two different cases, and you're talking about 50 to 75 people right off the bat.
Oh, the reports are pouring in.
Yep.
And it's only January 14th.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ari, I understand you actually sat down with Congressmember Gonzalez. Tell us how that went.
Right. So it was last month, is because on my blog, I wrote about this issue and how it was going to affect the music industry professionals, and kind of sounded the alarm bells. And my call to action was like, hey, this is going to decimate the California music industry. And she offered me a meeting. So I went down with a few musicians and we pled our case. And she's like, you know what? When we were drafting this bill, we always knew we were going to have to address the music industry issue later on. And we're like, okay, well, what do we do now? And she's like, well, send me language and we'll pop it in there for a carve out. I'm like, okay, great. I sent her language. She hasn't gotten back to me. I don't know what later means anymore, because we're 14 days into this and our friends, we're losing work left and right every single day. And so I don't really know what else to do right now, because we really need this exemption. We need a carve out, because this is just decimating. It's catastrophic for our industry. So
she acknowledged to you that she knew it was written poorly and that it was going to hurt the music industry.
And she said we were going to figure this out later. And we're just like, okay, well, what can we do now? Because at the time, we're like, January 1st is coming up and everyone is freaking out about this thing. And so we didn't really know what we're supposed to do. She's like, well, send me language. So I sent her language and she's not getting back to me. So I'm really hoping that she can get this language in, get this proposed, because we need this now. 14 days in, so many people are already losing work.
What she acknowledged to us is that the people that were being affected didn't really have jobs. These weren't jobs.
She's incorrect. This is our livelihood.
Yeah.
The term gig was coined by jazz musicians in the 1920s. We are the original giggers. That's how we make our living. Mm-hmm. And so our job is the aggregate of these gigs that we do throughout the year. We're artists. Mm-hmm. I mean, we work in multiple capacities. I also produce. I also arrange. I don't want to go to one place and just work one job. Not to mention, it doesn't exist. There's no Acme music company I can go to and get a 9-to-5, right? And I wouldn't want to anyway.
Mm-hmm. What about the workers' comp side of that?
That's very interesting. So under the law, the uniqueness of the musician's plight, because of how we work, our business model, under AB 5, we would be misclassified as employers and employees multiple times over throughout the year. So for example, as an employee, I'm a session singer. So if I have 30 clients throughout the year, right, or more, and I have a vocal cord injury, well, who do I claim? Which one of those clients do I claim workers' comp against? I can't do it. Mm-hmm. Every one of them would deny my claim.
Okay, so what needs I know you met also with Hertzberg, right?
Senate Majority Leader Hertzberg. We met with him last week, and he understood our plight, and he's very sympathetic to us. And he basically said, he's like, you know what? Yeah, I guess we didn't really realize how this was going to affect the industry. industry. And so we're trying to go around to anyone who will listen, who has power, and say, can you just exempt us? Like, because we understand your intention. Maybe, you're trying to help the little guy. We are the little guy. We're working musicians. This is going to be catastrophic. My accountant estimated that it would cost me an additional $6,000 a year to comply with this thing, because I'm both the employer and the employee in this. I play a gig on stage, the venue cuts me a check, but I also pay my backup musicians in that same gig. And so it's just not set up for our industry.
Now go ahead.
Just to dovetail on what Ari said, importantly, on the employee side of things, he was talking about the employer side of things to comply. As a supposed employee, if all my income goes from 1099 to W-2, under the new tax laws, I can't claim deductions. My deductions are vital to my music career. We're talking gear, we're talking instrument repair, we're talking promotional materials, anything like that. I don't have an employer to pay for those. I pay for those. So my accountant told me that in the 2018 tax year, I would have paid $8,000 more in taxes. So that plus what he's talking about that I would have to comply with on the employer side, we're looking at about $10,000 to $15,000 extra. I would have to move home to Atlanta, where I'm from, and where a lot of the business is moving anyway.
Exactly, because we were talking about that a little bit as far as the more red tape and the more expense that it takes for people to actually have these gigs here in California means they're just going to search for it elsewhere.
Correct.
Absolutely. I mean, Nashville is starting to thrive. Atlanta is thriving, and we love California. We want to stay here. We have a beautiful music scene here, and the musicians here are phenomenal. This is the culture of California. This is what makes California so special, and we're seriously considering, if we're going to have to be burdened and buried by all of these costs, we might actually have to relocate.
It's really surprising to hear you say you actually sat with Lorena Gonzalez, and she acknowledged the fact that this was going to be bad for your business and it was written poorly, and to send me the language. And yet she hasn't responded since.
Right, and so I consulted many people. I don't know how to write language for a law or for a bill. I'm a musician.
Confusing.
Right, so I'm like, okay, so I consulted a bunch of people.
Apparently they don't either, because they are saying it's not written well.
Right, and so I consulted, and we got a bunch of people together, and we're like, okay, this language makes sense. This is going to be beneficial for us. And we also, we're thinking about the unions, because we know that they were fighting for this thing. We're like, we don't want to step on their toes. I guess it's going to help some of their members or whatever. So we sent her language that we thought was great. She's not getting back to me. Wherever you are, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, please get back to us and pop this in there. We need this today.
Both of you, what would you like? What needs to be changed in AB 5, if it even needs to stay intact? That's question A. But what needs to be changed in the verbiage?
We need a blanket exemption for musicians and music professionals. We have language that takes into account collective bargaining agreements. The majority of musicians in California are not in the union. So they don't speak to our interests. We are truly independent. And this is all music professionals. This is mixers, engineers, studio owners. It's a holistic business. We all work together.
Now, you have a petition still going right now?
We have a petition that has been signed now by 32,000 music industry professionals of California. 32,000 people saying we are not in support of this. This is going to kill us. Please change this now. That's 32,000 people. It's and counting.
Sounds like a little bit more than a couple hundred. Yes. Where's the link for that? We'll put it up on our website after this interview. Please keep us posted. If the Assemblywoman gets back to you, we'd love to hear that side of, because obviously we want to be fair, we want to be balanced, but so far we're not hearing anything moving forward on your side. So thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
And keep the music flowing. You're right. This is California, man. This is what we do. This is our culture. All right, Anna, we're going to send it over.